Alright people, welcome to Property Talks. My name is Kanya Lumkwana and I am your agent with the most. And I am sitting with Ralph Smith, who is not only a business owner, but he's also my beloved boss. He's my beloved boss, I have to say that. And I'm just feeling so underdressed, man. Ralph, how you doing? You're looking sharp, eh?
Thank you, Kanye. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so thank you so much for coming through. Alright, so let's start. So you own a conveyancing firm.
Yes.
And just tell the people, what does a conveyancing firm do?
All right. Well, in respect of our profession, the legal profession, there are a few different routes that you can follow, and areas of speciality or areas that your practice grows into. And one of those areas is conveyancing, and what that means is essentially all matters related to the transfer of property onto from one person's name onto the other person's name, and incidental matters related to that.
All right, okay, that's awesome. And what made you choose this side of the law and not something like criminal law, which by the way is the only law that I thought existed until I was in varsity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think sometimes these TV programs create that impression.
Yeah.
Well, so I think the reason why you would choose one field of law over the other, I think there's two factors that influence that. The one is obviously an academic curiosity and interest. For me, that was property law from the word get-go. I think growing up in a family that was involved in aspects of the property industry, I think piqued that curiosity in me, and naturally I gravitated towards that. I think the second thing that influences what type of practice you develop and grow and so on is really what the needs of your clients are. And so if you represent a few business owners, you might find yourself doing more commercial law than court work. So yeah, I think it's a combination of those two things.
Okay, I get you. And is it now we're coming to the specifics of the buying property and selling property experts. Is it law that the buyer pays for the transfer lawyers that the seller chooses, and why is that?
I think it's important maybe to start off by saying that the reason why the seller would choose the attorneys has to do with some of the paperwork that we would draft in the transfer process. So after we receive the instruction, we would initiate the process by drafting these transfer documents, one of which is the power of attorney. And the power of attorney nominates the conveyancer in the firm to transfer the property on his behalf from the name of the seller onto the name of the purchaser. Contractually speaking, it is common practice that the purchaser pays for the costs of the transferring attorney. So that's the answer to that question.
Okay, because that has some of these guys up in arms as to why is that, and sometimes I say it's because that the asset belongs to the seller. And someone said yeah, I don't want my money to be temporarily kept by that guy's attorney. I don't even know them. So so some people, they feel emotion, towards that, and where money is involved, you can understand that.
Yes, and I think there's a common misperception out there as well that the conveyancing firm only acts in the interest of the seller. That's not entirely true. It's the duty of the conveyancing firm to make sure that the interests of both parties are protected during the process.
Yeah, so understood. And there's the transfer lawyers, conveyancing, and then there's bond attorneys. Can you explain what are those and what are the difference between those two?
Sure. So both are conveyancers. So transferring attorneys are conveyancers, and so are bond registration attorneys. They just play different roles in this process of getting the property onto your name, because most people, when they purchase a property, would require a mortgage bond to finance that purchase of the property. So in that respect, the bank who is granting the mortgage bond to the purchaser, will appoint one of their attorneys to deal with that process of registering a bond over the property, simultaneously with the transfer process. So when the transferring attorney transfers the property onto the name of the purchaser, simultaneously with that, the bond registration attorneys register a mortgage bond over the property and then pay out the funds that the bank has has granted for the purchase of the property.
Oh, okay. In a nutshell, the bond attorneys are the bank's attorneys.
Yes.
All right. Alright, so my next question is, why does the process of buying a property with a mortgage bond take 3 months, and can it be done quicker?
Yeah, so that's the average time it takes to transfer a property from the date of signature of the contract to transferring the property onto the name of the purchaser. And I think the reason for that is that there are various stages in this process where you're reliant on certain institutions or role players during this process. So very briefly, after you sign the deed of sale, you would then want to approach the bank and apply for a mortgage bond. Well, that process takes time. You know, it could take a week, it could take 2 weeks, it could be very quick. So depending on that, immediately there it creates a little bit of a waiting or a period in which you wait. And once that mortgage bond has been approved, then the contract actually comes into effect.
Okay.
And it's known that is known as when the suspensive conditions have been met. So once that bond is approved, the suspensive conditions have been met and it becomes a binding contract. That contract is then submitted to the law firm handling the transfer, and they would draft the documents, get the parties in to come and sign the transfer documents. After that, they would apply for rates clearance at the municipality, which ensures that all rates and taxes are paid up to date upon transfer of the property. That takes a few weeks as well. You also apply to SARS for your transfer duty clearance receipt. And then once the bond attorneys who you linked up with in this process have received their proceed to lodge at the deeds office as well from their client bank, we would then link up together and submit the paperwork to the deeds office. Goes through various stages of examination, and then it's registered if there aren't any issues or aren't any notes raised. So that process is the reason why it takes, it can take up to 3 months to register a property. Can it be done quicker? Yes, I suppose if those institutions, their turnaround times are a little bit quicker, then the process could be less than 3 months.
Okay, no, that's understood. And what is a positive property story, that makes you smile whenever you think of it?
Well, there are many. I think one that I remember quite fondly is our firm was handling a transfer of a property that somebody purchased in a little town called Bredasdorp in the Western Cape. And one of the conditions of the title deed was that the person was only allowed to keep 2 heads of cattle on this plot. Now this plot was situated in the middle of the town, so it was odd to have such a condition in your title deed. But it's a more rural area, so if the person that initially had the plot subdivided and so on wanted a condition like that, he could have inserted it, and that condition carries over. So this person purchased the property cash, and after the registration process, we sent her the deed of transfer. And she read through the deed of transfer, which very few people do, but she read through it, and she sent me a letter, handwritten letter, stating that she was very happy with our service and thank you so much for assisting her in this process and getting the property registered on her name. And she said, but she must point out that she had a good chuckle when she found out that she can only have 2 heads of cattle grazing on a property. So that's something that makes me smile.
That's so odd, eh?
It's very strange.
That's very odd.
There's another story that made me laugh, and it was a story an estate agent told, and this estate agent is unfortunately has since passed away. But she had a show house one day, and on this particular Sunday it was raining quite a lot. So, as she explained to me, that when the weather is bad, then your show house doesn't perform that well. Few people are willing to come out and have a look at the property. The owner of this house had a dog that she cared for very deeply, and the estate agent was under strict instructions to be very careful and not let the dog out of the house. Anyway, so this estate agent gets to the property, she has a key, so she opens up and quickly notices, but the dog isn't here. And she starts searching for the dog, looking under the beds, in the garden, and then she looks out of the front of the house, and in the street she sees this little dog. And she gets such a fright, and by then it started raining already, so she ran out. And opposite this house was a neighbour, and he was watching this fiasco of this lady running up and down the street trying to catch this dog in the rain. Eventually she catches the dog and she brings him inside the house. But he's soaked, he's sopping wet, and she decides to put him in the garage until the owner gets back. It turns out that after the show house and after she locked up, the owner of the house phones her and says, I just want to know something. Whose dog is this in my, in my garage? And the agent is very confused and says, "That's your dog. I put the doggy in the garage because I was scared he would run away." It turns out that this was the neighbour who was laughing at her. It turned out that this was his dog, and the owner of the house had taken
her dog
with her when she went out. So I think by far that is my favourite.
My goodness. No, I love it. I love it already. Yo, that's crazy. I'm happy. I'm scared of dogs. So I'll never be chasing a dog up in the street. No, no. All right. So let's say a person signs an offer to purchase, right? And then gets approved for a mortgage bond, and the OTP is sent with the final grant to you guys, and then the buyer changes his mind or her mind. For some reason. When is it too late to back out of a deal without consequences?
When is it too late to back out of a deal without consequences?
Yeah.
Sure. I think it's always important to inform clients from the start that once your signature goes onto a contract, it creates certain obligations. And the obligations it creates, you are required to fulfill. In the event that you have signed an offer to purchase and it has not yet been accepted by the seller, that would be your time to back out. But once the seller accepts that offer to purchase, it becomes binding. If that offer to purchase is subject to bond approval, subject to the suspensive condition, and you don't get bond approval, automatically the contract would lapse.
Okay.
Right? But once the bond approval has been granted, the suspensive condition has been met, the contract can now proceed. All right. So when is it too late? It's too late after the contract has been accepted by the seller. The consequences that flows out of backing out of a contract varies. So the seller can decide to enforce the agreement, in other words, force the purchaser to take transfer of the property and pay. Going through the courts obviously to do that. Another consequence is the estate agent who marketed and sold the property perhaps has a claim for his or her commission. And
I will have a claim.
So those are some of the consequences. So it's never a good idea to decide to breach a contract. But if you were to back out of it, it would be before it's accepted right in the start.
All right, awesome. I don't particularly like this next question, but a lot of people are asking, this question, and they're asking me, of all people, they're asking it to my face, they're asking it online. How do I sell my property without an estate agent? I wonder why anybody would want to do that. I really wonder. But like, how does it happen?
All right. Well, Kanya, I think it's important to know that it is possible, but it does come with certain inherent risks. The reason why we have estate agents involved in the process of selling our properties is because those estate agents know the process well. They know what to look out for, they know what they need to inform the purchaser of in terms of defects of the property. They know what the steps are to follow in terms of going to a mortgage bond originator and so on. So it allows the process to run a little bit smoother, and obviously they are marketing experts, so they know how to get the most exposure for properties, I suppose. But if you are confident that you can market and sell the property as an owner, it is done, it's not unheard of. The important thing then would be to ensure that that you have a few advisors that you can trust to assist you during this process, especially if you're not familiar with it. So it would be good in any event to maybe speak to a property practitioner or to an attorney that can guide you in this process. How would you go about it? Well, you would have to list your property, I suppose, on some kind of marketing website. You would have to ensure that all your paperwork is ready, that if you do get an offer, the paperwork is ready to be signed, and then to submit it to assist the purchaser with submitting it to their mortgage originators, and then finally to the attorney's office that will be doing the transfer. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's good, that's good. Also, something to note there, if you do make a mistake while you're busy selling your property on your own without an estate agent, it can be very expensive. It will cost more than my commission.
Yes.
I just want to put that in there. What makes a contract binding? So like whether I'm selling my house to my neighbor or my car to a stranger, what makes a contract binding?
Well, what makes a contract binding? I think the important thing here is that one first has to determine what it is exactly that you are selling, because different objects that you are selling might have different requirements, or different contracts might have different requirements. At the base of it, there are certain requirements that needs to be met in any contract for it to be binding. For example, there needs to be consensus between the parties. That's very, very important. The parties need to have the capacity to enter into the agreement. So, for example, a minor can't necessarily enter into certain contracts. So that's important to first determine, and then to ask the question of whether there's additional requirements in a particular type of contract. So in your example, you've mentioned the sale of a car. Well, there's no requirement when it comes to selling a car that the contract needs to be in writing. So it can even be a verbal agreement.
Okay.
It's recommended that it's put in writing because you don't want any confusion as to what the parties agree to later on down the line. So with a property, there are certain additional requirements, one of which the contract needs to be in writing. And something else that's pretty interesting these days with all our modern technology and technological developments, people have started using electronic signatures when signing documents.
Oh yes, yeah.
With the sale of a property, it needs to be so-called a wet signature. In other words, the contract needs to be printed out if it's emailed to a seller or buyer, and they need to sign. They cannot sign electronically or on their computer, which I have seen happen on a few occasions.
Okay, yeah, that's good. It's good to know. From your experience, what are the common mistakes people make when buying a property?
I think some of the common mistakes that are made when purchasing a property is the purchasers don't quite realize what all the costs are that's involved in the process. So for example, there are attorney's fees to transfer the property onto your name, but there's also something called transfer duty, which is paid to SARS when you purchase a property, and that can be quite a substantial amount. So under R1 million it's usually exempt, but over R1 million, that's when transfer duty starts kicking in. And when a property costs a few million rands, that transfer duty can be a few 100,000 rands.
Sure.
So it's important to know all these things beforehand. So don't rush things. Engage with the estate agent. Ask these questions. Ask what all the costs are that's involved. And if you're dealing with a reputable estate agent in any event, they will inform you of what these costs are. So don't rush.
That's awesome. I love that. Don't rush. And you know, like us as the estate agent, sometimes we're guilty because we are rushing maybe the client just so that we can get our commission. And you know, don't feel under pressure as the seller or a buyer. Don't feel under pressure. You know, anything that's rushed, you're just gonna make a mistake. Whether it's marriage or anything, anything that's rushed. Yeah. All right. So you told us a positive property story. What is the negative one that you want to forget?
Sure. I think that that leads on very nicely to the previous question, because often you find in those circumstances where somebody purchased a property in a rush and didn't take the time to familiarize themselves with the property, to check whether they are happy with the condition of the property that they're purchasing. Those are always the stories that end very negatively, where the purchaser tries to maybe pull out of the contract when they discover these issues, and then a process that is supposed to be a very happy process, you know, of buying a property, buying a home, turns into a very negative one, and very quickly.
It can, yes, it can turn very sour. An RDP house, it's illegal to sell before the 8 years, but is there a way around that?
So Kanya, I think to answer that question, one needs to give a little bit of context as well. And I think when it comes to RDP homes, one must realize that this is government's way of trying to address the housing crisis in South Africa.
Yes.
So one should be discouraged from selling an RDP house, because once you sell it, you can't apply for another one. So to discourage people from selling their RDP homes, you know, government has legislated that you can't sell it within 8 years of taking occupation of the property. Also, you can't rent out your RDP house. That's also something that people need to know. In the event that you need to sell a property and you may have a valid reason, for example, you're relocating or you're moving to a different province, then you could ask permission from the Department of Housing to sell the property. And if they grant permission, you can go ahead and sell it. So that's the way around it. You would ask government's permission to sell the property. And if they grant that, then you are allowed to sell it under the 8 years and move.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Second last question. If you know there's somebody out there that wants to be a conveyancing attorney, what advice do you have from them, or something that you wish somebody told you when you were studying?
Well, I think one of the things that somebody that's deciding to go and study law should know beforehand is there's going to be a lot of reading that you're going to be doing, and you're going to have to enjoy reading before you choose this field. Another common misperception is that attorneys make a lot of money, and although
don't they?
Although it can certainly provide you with a very comfortable living, as with any career or any profession, you're going to have some that make a lot of money and some that don't. So being an attorney doesn't guarantee financial success. So that's a common misconception. Not that would have changed my mind in any event, because I enjoy what I do.
Okay, awesome, man. So you're saying like not every attorney is Harvey Specter, from Suits.
No.
Oh man, that's my guy there. I wanted to change what I was studying in order to go to law, just to be Harvey Specter. Okay, this question I've been getting it a lot from people, my friends in Joburg, people online. Why are properties in Cape Town so expensive?
I think it is probably a matter of supply and demand. I think that there's a lot of families emigrating to Cape Town. This is a term that I heard for the first time a little while back as well. Semigrate. It's when you move from one city to another. So there's a lot of people moving down from KZN and Gauteng.
You said semi-grade.
Semi-grade.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard immigrate. Semi-grade.
No,
Okay.
semi-grade is
Okay.
when you still stay within the same borders of the
All
country,
right.
but
Okay. I understand.
So we're finding a lot of people moving down and purchasing properties here in Cape Town, and I think that is driving up the cost a little bit because the supply, can't keep up with demand. I think that's changing. I think that at one stage the property developers were struggling to keep up with sales, but I think that the market is becoming a little bit more balanced. And we have nice views in Cape Town. I suppose that's another reason.
That's true. Oh man, I love Cape Town. It's like, for me, it's the most beautiful place in South Africa. Remember, I went to Joburg, I think 2 years ago. Last time I was in Joburg, I was like, I love it here. And I was in Sandton. I was in Sandton for the week. I was in Sandton, but I was like, I love it. Nowhere compared to Cape Town.
Yeah.
No, nothing compared to Cape Town. Ralph, tell the people where can they find you, your website and your office's address. Just tell the people.
All right, thank you. Okay, my email address is ralph@rcslaw.co.za. People can also go onto our website, www.rcslaw.co.za, and all our contact information is on our website.
Okay.
Our offices are located in Brackenfell and Rossen Street, and should anybody have property-related queries, they are welcome to phone our offices, and I'm sure one of our attorneys will be able to assist them. Thank you.
Alright, awesome. Thank you so much, Ralph, for your time. Thank you for sitting down with us. Thank you for the information shared. You will be coming back. I'm not sure if it's in a month or so. I'll let you know, but like, we would like you to come back. I'm planning to have some themed, like monthly themes, where currently we're dealing with the first-time home buyer and stuff like that, and then I want to have an investment theme, where we're speaking to investors, people who want to get into property investment, how they can doing. And I know, like, a lot about that, like, with trust, company, and all that stuff. Like, I will be having you back, so please just bear in mind that
Thank you so
I'm
much.
gonna have you ask you back. Thank you so much, Ralph. There you have it, people. Property Talks with Kanya Lungwana.